Hello, record and jazz nerds of the internet. Today, I will compare the RHINO Shape of Jazz to Come versus the Vinyl Me Please Shape of Jazz to Come. Stereo, mono. Which one will win? Let's find out.
In the morning.
Well, in honor of me posting my top 5 most hated jazz records of all time, I am going to post this video. Shape of Jazz to Come is a record that a lot of people dislike. I actually enjoy it. Shocking, I suppose. It's definitely not for everybody, but in terms of free jazz, it's not as free as a lot of stuff out there. It's not exactly as out to lunch as Out to Lunch, and I find this a lot more enjoyable a record. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's talk about the records. So this came out, I think, in 2010. It's a stereo reissue, and then this Vinyl Me Please came out a couple months ago. And again, this is stereo, as noted by that big stereo, and this is mono, which is denoted by nothing. I don't know why you can't put something on here to let us know that it's mono. I mean, this is 2023. Most things are in stereo. It's not 1959 anymore, where you're looking for the stereo, and if it doesn't say stereo, it's default mono. Come on, Vinyl Me Please. Like, put it on the OB strip, maybe. Or right here, even. You got this little sticker. Could let us know. I mean, if you look at the website, you could see that it was cut from the mono. So, that's cool, but let us know on the record. Let's talk about the covers. I guess I need to take this off here. Another thing, Vinyl Me Please. Can you make these covers a little bit bigger? Because it really makes it difficult to get mostly in, but also out of your sleeves. It comes with the OB strip, which, again, getting into this sleeve is difficult because it's super snug. Interestingly enough, this sleeve is more of a poly sleeve than their normal sleeves, which are, I don't know what the material is, maybe Mylar. It has like that more crisp feel, whereas this is more rubbery. I don't know if that's worth mentioning, but I mentioned it anyway. So immediately at looking at this, you can see that these fonts are different, and looking at Discogs, that's accurate to the stereo and accurate to the mono. So that, although it looks weird and wrong, it's actually right. If I'm looking at the lettering, I don't know how well this is going to come up, but it comes up fairly well. The lettering is much more crisp on the Vinyl Me Please version, but what's interesting is I would say that the picture is more crisp on the RHINO reissue, and then the Atlantic symbol is much more crisp there and much more pixelated there. Let's look at the backs. They look fairly identical. This, I don't know, it's probably not going to show up very well, is a little bit like 5th generation looking, where some of the gray is not sharp, whereas on this it's perfectly sharp. So, as always, Vinyl Me Please, getting the cover right. And then this is silvery stamped. Now, they're both on a tip-down jacket. The cardboard on the RHINO, though, is a little bit thicker and comes off a little bit more I don't know, you're not going to be able to tell. It's something you could feel in your hand, that the RHINO version feels a little bit more substantial and feels a little bit more nice and premium, whereas this is a thinner cardboard that feels less so. That's sort of probably a non-issue. The Vinyl Me Please does come with this book about the album, which I will never read. And to maximize annoyance, an OB strip on the book too. That's hard to get on and off. So again, Vinyl Me Please really just helping out, making this a fantastic experience. Let's look at the records. Oh, I probably should note that this originally came with one of those pink plastic sleeves that kind of leaches something on your records. So if you have one of those pink sleeves, get rid of it and replace it with a non-pink sleeve. I don't know what's in those pink sleeves that makes it leach out goop, but it's not great. So both of the labels look pretty good. I don't really see a big difference other than the colors, which I'm going to guess is accurate to the stereo and the mono versions. The one thing you can notice off the top, which I point to anytime I'm doing one of these videos, is that there's way less dead wax on the reissue or the RHINO reissue than the Vinyl Me Please reissue. In my experience, that usually means that the one that has the wider grooves is going to be more dynamic. However, this being stereo and this being mono, that might attribute to the difference in groove that I don't know. But let's talk about what they sound like. So, these are both pressed, I believe, at RTI. They're both fairly quiet. I would say that the Vinyl Me Please version is a little bit more quiet, but to me, that's pretty hit or miss. You can buy 10 records and they'll all probably have a different level of noise to them. So that's not necessarily indicative of the pressing. However, some pressing plants are worse than others. So both being at RTI is a good pressing plant. That's not really going to be an issue. Now, both of these, I believe, are all analog, cut from the analog tape. I know that this one is all analog. Now this one says LPs cut from the original analog masters. Does that mean all analog? Maybe. As we've all found out, that's kind of hit or miss in terms of, is that an accurate statement or not, or what? This is cut by Bernie Grumman at BGM. This is Ryan Smith at Sterling Sound. Does that matter?
I don't know, man.
So when I came into this, I assumed that the mono would sound better, and I think that's based on the fact that I did a comparison between Dave Brubeck Time Out, an earlier mono pressing versus the Music on Vinyl stereo reissue. And far and away, the mono pressing was more dynamic and way better sounding. I assumed that it would be the same for this. I find the stereo to actually sound better than the mono. The bass on this is a bit more fleshed out. You can feel it a little bit more. The highs on this is a little edgy, a little in your face more than this. This is a bit more round sounding. I wouldn't say it's warm at all, but everything kind of breathes a little bit more than on this one. This one's more enjoyable for me to listen to than this one. Not that this is a bad sounding record at all. It's just that when you compare the two, this one has more of a smooth liquid sort of feel, and this one is a bit more sterile. So we need to protect Bernie Goodman at all costs because he's magic, apparently. I would love to have a Bernie Goodman mono pressing. I should say too, like, one of the reasons I find mono, even outside of whatever perceived difference in sound quality, a lot of the early stereo jazz records were cut where you have a bunch of instruments on the right and a bunch of instruments on the left. Like, you'll have the drums coming out of one side and other stuff coming out of the other. They hadn't really figured out how to mix stereo properly, where you want the drums centered and then maybe instruments slightly skewed one way or the other. This actually, whenever they were mixing this originally, they did a pretty good job where it's not super weird, where like certain instruments are just completely panned left or right. If you could still find this, I would probably recommend getting this. I don't think you can. I got this from Acoustic Sounds a while ago, and I think it was the last copy they had. It was super cheap. It was like $16, I think. I don't know if there's a comparable pressing out there today. Like, I don't know if there's any other Bernie Goodmans out there that's available. If you absolutely want a mono pressing, this is a fine copy. Again, it's all analog. So I assume that it's going to sound better than most other of the pressings that are available. I mean, that is a, whatever Vitally Please charges for a record these days, $45 record. So, again, if you could find this, grab this. If you don't like stereo records for whatever reason and have to have mono, grab that. Have a good day.